For as long as I've had an online presence, my age has been the main point of contention in discussions about me. I don't know if you've been a fan long enough to remember the lazy cunt jokes, but I became a thing in early 2016. My channel was branded by profane language, edgy jokes about Jacob Sartorius, and cheap zooms into my pudgy grin every other frame. Looking back on it, the fact that I was 11 and could easily follow the commentary formula should have been a sign that the standards for the genre were terribly low. Instead, I was considered a prodigy for it, ultimately because my age distinguished me from the millions of other retards with vaporwave banners and blue snowball mics doing the exact same thing. Since then, my content has changed radically, but my comment sections have remained chock full of age-related remarks. Among all the remarkably forced pedophile jokes and the concern trolling, there have been a few souls genuinely perplexed that a preteen on the internet can utter the F-word so vigorously. I'm not oblivious to how the novelty factor might shock older folks, but I have a hard time believing these people were Ned Flanders when they were in high school. Considering that risque language has been the extent of my mischief, I suspect that these self-proclaimed goody two-shoes engaged in far worse antics during their youth. Even if you were to compare me with my peers, I'm still on good standing. The people I go to school with are up to much worse hijinks than cursing on the internet. Things like juuling or getting their ass fucked, making me look like a saint comparatively. Regardless, the population of geriatrics who have figured their way onto my channel refuse to cease their nagging. It seems like the older you get, the more your cognitive bias kicks into full throttle and selectively deletes memories of how kids acted when you were 14. There's a plethora of individuals who claim that it's absolutely uncouth for kids to behave as I do, but are simultaneously eager to teach butt stuff to toddlers who just learned how to piss without doing a drive-by on the toilet seat. Not too long ago, there was a sexually explicit exhibition at a Brazilian museum of modern art that children were allowed to attend. There was a vocal group of people who saw nothing wrong with it at all. Weirdly enough, those same people didn't hesitate to condemn the Brazilian president for holding a toddler and teaching her to do finger guns. Quite a surprise that the same people who were livid about a toddler doing finger guns did not care one bit about kids being presented with a live wiener. Now, I can already hear you. But Sophia, weren't you just saying we should let you be vulgar? There's a significant difference between protecting your kids from getting dicks shoved in their face and sheltering them from generally innocuous things like swear words. Don't get confused. The people who sexualize children are the same left-wing rationalist guys who come up with increasingly obtuse and elaborate justifications for why it's beneficial to remove gun images from search results.
I think that there are problems with access to firearms in the US today.
You just yelled "this idiot is on campus," and
I did.
So do you?
The male feminists who think catcalls are harassment are the same ones whipping it out unrequested like Louis C.K. If you think I'm jumping to rash conclusions, read the Wikipedia article about the French petition against the age of consent laws from 1977. Do you think it's purely coincidental that the petition was signed by all of the mainline postmodernist guys? Because I don't. Call me a madman, but I have a much bigger problem with teenagers fucking than I do with them playing Doom and cursing. One example of people concerning themselves with my age transpired fairly recently when I appeared on a show called The Kill Stream. It was a great experience overall, but there were, however, a few people acting as if, due to the mere fact that I'm very young, I shouldn't engage with people I admire, simply because they talk about adult stuff on occasion. These are good-intentioned comments and seemingly harmless, but the line of thinking they reflect is the same one that leads to my current situation with YouTube. To put it simply, my comment section has been annihilated. The reason? Networks of pedophiles have been commenting sickening shit on the videos of minors as of late. Advertisers caught wind of this, pulled all their ads, and YouTube started stroking out. So, as usual, they whipped out their trump card of epileptic policy change and disabled the comment sections of minors within a vague age range. Instead of punishing specific commenters, as any rational fucking platform with any aptitude would, they settled on removing one of the main privileges that young content creators have, and hurting them in the process more than anyone else. Essentially, YouTube has made the assumption that minors across the board are simply mental quadriplegics, unable to deal with any inconvenience whatsoever, and that the company not only has the jurisdiction but the responsibility to step in on their behalf. Listen, I don't want to blow my own trumpet too hard, but I'm not retarded. I'm capable enough to regulate my own little corner of the internet. But just because YouTube believes that young people are incapable of judging what's acceptable for themselves, my videos no longer have comment sections. The way I see it, universally limiting the privileges of all minors on the platform won't even put a dent in the issue. The pedos who jump-started this trend will just continue their operations on Discord. From what I've seen, they've already set up several flourishing communities there that nobody's doing anything about. Also, my last video got age restricted, so I'm technically not allowed to watch my own content either. And I'm not the only person to have trouble with shit like this.
You know, it's been a problem for a long time. Like, I've been carded at my own shows, which is ridiculous. You know, I've played shows before, and they haven't let me in because they don't believe that we're actually in the band. And just because, you know, someone's younger, like I said it before, it doesn't mean that if you're younger, I think in the mind of some adults that can't really get that in their head is that kids can be successful too, and they can make their own way.
This whole situation symbolizes the odd polarization of viewpoints regarding the treatment of children. People seem to either dismiss with the concept of innocence entirely, consequentially sexualizing children as I described in my last video, or they infantilize young people indefinitely, allowing the juvenile masses to continually extend their childhoods as college attendees. Kids are invited into the sexual world at 14, but when they leave high school are subsidized to cling onto the cradle for 4, 6, maybe 10 more years at university. So, when they finally venture out into reality, the only grown-up wisdom they've attained is how to take drugs and get laid. As someone who advocates for Generation Z as often as they can, I'm particularly unhappy about this. The primary reason that Vapora Boy, my best friend and only collaborator, got a job editing for Anthony Fantano was because of communication that took place in his comment section. He was my age at the time, so he wouldn't have had that opportunity with this new policy. Furthermore, I've seen enough people my age to assure you that Gen Zers have a very interesting and refreshing set of ideas which I foresee being suppressed by this rule. And if you allow me to be a bit conspiratorial, I don't think YouTube changed their terms of service purely out of their concern for the safety of children on their platform. YouTube has a bit of a history with greenlighting disturbing pedophilic content, which you're well aware of if you remember how prominent Spider-Man and Elsa videos became and how long their popularity was sustained. YouTube also had no qualms with hosting CSGO gambling content that displayed a clear priority of preying on children. And let's not forget that Google is paying tens of millions of dollars to executives who sexually assault women and participate in sexual slavery, who, interestingly enough, are the same ones sitting at meetings crying about how sexist Trump is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that literal toddlers are conscious enough to figure out how to delete and report comments. In that case, it's the parent's responsibility. However, YouTube turned my comments off, and I know for a fact that I am capable of regulation, so consider the possibility that they're not motivated exclusively by safety concerns. Jacob Sartorius and Maddie Brapp still have their comment sections, so either these giant channels just slip by the algorithm in a coincidental blunder, or this rule isn't what it's claimed to be. Considering this sets the precedent for punishing creators based on unfounded judgments of the content in their comment sections, I'm starting to think this policy is one of the many upcoming changes that will act as a cover for handicapping channels that YouTube isn't keen on. But nah, I'm just being paranoid. Let me go back to listening to tech support bug people talk about how much they want to start more dialogues in an overly earnest, calming voice. In closing, this whole hassle begs an important question. Who exactly is capable to hold the authority of culling content? I'm certainly no fan of outside entities possessing that power, and the bots that YouTube deploys are shitting and farting themselves half the time, so I'd be happy if users were allowed to figure things out for themselves. Also, in light of this new policy, and considering the fact that YouTube keeps demonetizing me, I've decided to open a Patreon account. I know it's the conventional e-celeb move, but I genuinely like to get some financial kickback from the work I put into these videos, especially taking into account the small budget that has been involved in the production of my most recent ones. The link to my Patreon is in the description. People will get rewards that correspond to how much they donate, the whole shebang. I'll see you guys next video.
You're not asking yourself the real question that America needs to decide once and for all. And that question is, how old is 15 really? I know I sound mean, and I know what the people are thinking when I'm saying this. Dave, she is only 15. All right, but that's the discrepancy, because when you talk about a little girl like Elizabeth Smart, then the country feels like 15 is so young and so innocent. On the flip side, here comes 15 again. Now we're talking about a 15-year-old black kid in Florida. This black kid accidentally killed his neighbor when he's practicing wrestling moves that he saw on TV. Now, was he a kid?